with one thing out of place, my wife will go nuts if we have one neighbor come over. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here trying to film some videos in the middle of this living room, which is got about 17 different projects going on within it. And I just happened to check out the shirt that I decided to put on today, and it's pretty damn fitting. I don't know if you guys will be able to see this, but I may have to cut it in. So anyway, we got a pretty cool project. Power supply is going to be to power my YouTube camera rig, which is right here. Again, more impressive of a camera rig than is needed for my talent, but it does a really nice job, and I just we'll be starting on the next couple of videos. We'll be switching to 4K processing with this, so that'll be nice. But it's a great rig. It's got all kinds of stuff on it that makes filming YouTube videos really, really easy. However, it requires a lot of different batteries. In fact, if we count these up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 rechargeable systems on this little camera rig. They operate on different voltages. They all need different things. And it's 6 cords going into it to charge everything. It's a nightmare. What I want to do is power everything all from one battery pack and do it cheaply, as always. Because if it's not cheap, what's the point? I think there's crap in the lens. So we'll start off with the parts list. I ended up getting 2 different project enclosures. I wasn't sure how big it was going to end up being. We're only going to need the smaller one for this particular setup. This would be a great setup if I really wanted to make sure that I kept the batteries in the enclosure all in one piece. In this case, I didn't need to do that, so we can get away with a smaller enclosure. We're going to use these buck boost converters. These are an incredibly cool little electronic device that comes in a variety of form factors. We're going to use one of the nicer ones, but they're still incredibly inexpensive with a nice screen on it. So what these magical little things will do is they will give you a voltage range on the incoming side, and they'll give you a voltage range on the outgoing side. Unlike normal power adapters, these don't just step down, they step up. So if I want to go from 20 volts to 50 volts, this will do it. If I want to go from 50 volts to 20 volts, this will do it. If I want to go from USB 5.5 volts and drive a 8-volt charger for a camera, this will do it. It gives you the ability to vary the output both in an upslope as well as a downslope. It does have current ratings just like you would expect, so there's only so much wattage you can get out of these, but they're pretty darn efficient, about 97%, 97.8% efficient. It generates a little bit of heat, but like I said, when you get that level of efficiency, it's not bad. So we have 2 of these because we're gonna need to send an 8.4 volt setup and a 7.2 volt path. And then we're also gonna need to do some USB powering as well. So for that, I picked up one of these. These little guys are pretty slick. All right, so this thing is looking for ideally 12 volts, but it has a pretty large range, anywhere from 8 to 16 or 18 volts or something like that. And this drives a USB powered 5.5 volt output. It comes with a connector right on it, so you could theoretically just hook this up to a car and give yourself a USB port. We're not gonna need that. We're gonna need this to bridge off and charge multiple things. So my wireless microphone system takes 3 USB power supplies to keep it charged up. So this is gonna drive those 3. This buck converter is gonna drive the camera, the main 4K Sony. And then this one is going to drive the 7-inch display so I can look at my handsome face, as well as the lighting system that's built in on my camera rig. To power this, I thought about a whole bunch of different battery options and really wanted to figure out what would make the most sense. If you want to go cheap, the cheapest possible battery systems out there are for RC cars. So using like a LiPo cell, like a 3C or a 4C cell battery system, that's the cheapest option there is. It's not the most convenient for charging because you've got separate power and separate balance leads. It's a little funky. I actually have the chargers and stuff for all of that, but I didn't want to deal with that. I thought about the application. So camcorder, when do I usually do most of my YouTube recording? It's actually out in the garage. Or when it's here in the house, I've got tools in the house too. So I thought we're just going to use our DeWalt battery packs to run the whole camera system. So this is a 6 amp hour, 20 volt lithium power cell. These are the ones from Whately or Watley. I don't know if any of you happen to watch Project Farm, but he did a nice review. Actually, his channel, he does a pretty good job. But he compared a whole bunch of these cheaper batteries versus the OEMs, and the OEMs always outperform these cheaper batteries without question. However, dollar per watt, this is one of the few Chinese knockoff batteries that actually outperforms that $1 to milliamp hour range. Watley's these are a really nice battery pack for not a lot of money. We need a way to click that in, so I grabbed myself one of these guys. So we're just going to drop this in. This is then going to run through our little box here, and it's going to drive all of our equipment, which then drives all the camera equipment, and all of this stuff can get mounted on my camera tripod so I never have to take it off. When the battery finally dies, and it will be a while with this, with 6 amp hours, swap it out, grab one off my drill, slap it back in, whole system's up and running again. No chargers, no cords, no nothing. I think it's a cool idea. So your applications for something like this are huge. Anything essentially, we'll say 50 volts and under. It's a pretty safe number. You can get buck converters that will do just about anything. But for most people, just about everything battery power that you'll have in your house is going to run under 50 volts. So what this allows you to do is power anything with anything, up or down. So we got our parts, let's get to work. Yeah, I'll be the first to admit she may not be the prettiest belle at the ball, but you don't always want the prettiest belle at the ball. Sometimes that's a real pain in the ass, you know? I'm looking for a working belle at the ball right here. A hearty one. You know, one I can lean on. I know is gonna be there. And that I know isn't gonna cheat on me when I'm using other battery packs. You know? So I think this is gonna do just fine. I had to notch this out just a little bit on this side as well, but we are ready. Give it a test fit. Perfect. Actually, there it is. Now it's perfect. So I think that's gonna work just nicely. That's gonna work very nicely. See that little guy?
I wouldn't worry about that little guy.
So next up, we're gonna mount a couple of these like strain relief wire clamps. I'm gonna mount 2 to the top because that's pretty much all I can fit there. And then we're gonna have to figure out, let's see, a power switch. So a main power switch to turn it on, which is probably gonna have to be down the side about midway on one side. And what else? What else? I don't think much else. It's gonna get tight in here though. It's gonna get really tight in here, so. So next up, we're gonna work on the LCD screen buck adapter here. So I've just put some power leads on so it can tie in with the 20 volts of everything else. And then I need a little adapter end. So I tend to save, you know, whenever replace some electronics or something gets thrown away, I always make sure to save the old power adapters. You can find all kinds of good uses for them. If I get this freaking thing out of here, I'll show you. All right, so in order to power the LCD screen and the video light, we need a little connector, M-style connector, which we have there. I think that's a 5.5 millimeter. It's a pretty standard size. And I'm pulling this off of a cord from, I think a network hub or something like that. I always save, whenever I'm throwing away the electronics, I always save the adapters because they come in handy for things. And if not the adapters, you may need the end someday. So it's always good to kind of hold on to those. You know, we don't need the little filter on here, but we're gonna leave it on there anyway. But it beats having to order this stuff, and it beats having it end up in a landfill somewhere, I guess. So that was gonna chase along the same hole as our camcorder power adapter. And I know we need tip positive because I was able to test the output on the camera or on the screen. So now we just need to figure out which one of these wires goes to the center tip here so that we can make sure we line the polarity up correctly. And for that, I'm gonna go back to a multimeter and just check the conductivity of each conductor so that we have the right one. So there, slide that guy in. Let's go to there. Where'd my wires go? There it is. Oops, keep slipping. All right, so we know that this is positive. So on the output side of this second buck converter, we're gonna connect this to positive. And this one's asking for like 7.3, 7.4 volts, somewhere in there, which is another pretty standard, but it is different from the 8.5 that the camcorder requires, and that's why we gotta run two different buck converters. If they were a little closer, I might wanna risk it, but if the camcorder that's on this set is over $1,000, so I don't wanna cook that, and I probably get another $500 worth of stuff around it that I don't wanna have to replace. So better to invest in two of these, which are super cheap. And it also helps split the load too, so that one of these isn't, drawing so much current. But it's better to do it that way and get it right than to try to save a buck and get it wrong. So for the most part, that's the bulk of the, oh no, it's not, I lied. We gotta put the USB power in, I almost forgot. Where did that little guy go? Seriously. Thank God my nuts are in a bag, because by now I would have lost one of them. There it is. Okay, so this little guy, it's from Connected, drives up to 15 watts, which is plenty of charging power for USB. And it accepts a voltage range of anywhere as low as 8 volts to as high as 20. I could theoretically tie it into one of these buck converters, but since it can handle 20, I'm going to choose to wire this directly into the supply side of everything. And then on the output side, we're going to have to do something kind of funky. So what I decided to try is I ordered a couple of these guys, spring-loaded or whatever you want to call them, coiled USB cables. And because this part of it is just for charging the wireless mic sets, like the mic pack sets, so I don't want like wires hanging everywhere, so I figured doing a coiled USB charging cable, gold-plated, yay. Doing a coiled version of this would be really good, because I don't need 10 feet of wire. I only need a couple of feet of wire when I really need it, and then it can coil up and not make a complete mess of itself. But we got to cut the ends off of this in order for that to be useful to us. So snip there, and I don't know if I want to. Yeah, no, I'll strip it after. So we'll just feed that guy in. I need to take some of the coiled part with me, just so we have enough leftover wire. And I'll do the same thing with the other cord here, but for now, let's get this one stripped. There it is, okay. So usually they color code these USB cables pretty clearly. We got a red and a black here. That, generally speaking, that is our power, but we're gonna test that before I totally commit to wiring it permanently. And then, these will be your data connections here. But we'll test that out just to make sure. So on the connected adapter, it appears to just be a black and a red, so even a dummy like me can't screw that one up. So as you can see, getting a nice little red light on the charger. Charger! So that's gonna work perfectly. So now I'll snip off the other cord here. And I'll just repeat the process. Some thick ass plastic. Imagine how many plastic trees had to be melted just to make plastic that thick. Alright, alright, alright. Just gonna tin up the contacts on the switch. And anytime you can do anything like this that will help speed the connection, it's actually good, especially on a switch. less heat that it has to deal with. I mean, they're just plastic switches. They can only handle so much heat. And the less you give it, the lesser the risk of doing some damage. Good and tight, the Swedish Virgin. Good. So there's that. Now we got to get our positive coming out of there. And it's going to tie into all the positives. All right, we are ready to start making some connections here. I think what I'm going to do is figure out how many reds. So there's one, there's two. There's one, there's two. We're going to tie them all together into two different bundles of relatively even size. With any luck, there's that. Yeah. And then we will just put one of those butt connectors. How much longer do you think it is before the woke culture, cancel culture, catches up with butt connectors? I don't even know what you call them otherwise. I'm sure they'd find a name for it though. Yeah, I like these connectors. The only thing I could see that would be a problem is if you were doing this in a super tight area where you didn't want to risk overheating something else around it and melting it or damaging it, because you do have to put a decent amount of heat in here, and I could see that being an issue in some really tight areas. But for most stuff, I mean, 90% of the time, I mean, that is a whole lot easier than the alternative. And it makes a weatherproof connection, which is really nice. All in, oh, I knew I was going to forget. No, I didn't forget. Those don't belong there. Yeah, I like it. Ready. I believe we are ready for a test run here. Little pieces of plastic still everywhere. Slide our battery in. We're gonna kind of flip this around a little bit. We're gonna power it up. That's a good sign. All right. So I'm going to now adjust the voltage to get what we need. Oh, it's off, that's why. It's putting out 15 volts. We got 8.36 on the top, which is good. And then you just rotate this dial around, and it does let you get pretty, I mean, to the 10th anyway. We're going to go back down to 7. I think it's a 15 turn potentiometer in these, so there's plenty of variability to the range. All right, so there's 7. Let's do 7.2-ish on the bottom one. Before I close everything up, I'm going to check the stuff that I can check. So we'll check our USB chargers first. And we are charging. There's one. There is 2. So that's good. Now we will tightly pack this poor thing all together. Hopefully. Wow, that's a lot of stuff. Oh, and she's gonna close nice. No problem. I'm only putting 2 screws in here just to hold it together for right now, so I can check out the camera power. And as long as everything's good, what am I hitting here? As long as everything's good, I'll take the battery pack off it again, and we'll go back and drill some cooling holes in it. That's the only thing I haven't done. Why are you not threading into your home? Ah, there we go. So I went through and removed the batteries from my camera, my light, my screen and put it on, plugged it right in to our new pack. And as you can see on the top one here, we're running 8.3 volts at 0.56 amps, but I can just tap this button and cycle through. We'll go to watts, so it's pulling 4.66 watts, amp hours. So it tracks your total, which will give you an idea on your battery output too, which is really nice. You know when your batteries are really not working the way they're supposed to. We've got watt hours, and then time, so number of hours it's been on, running for 2 minutes here. And you got the same thing down at the bottom here running the screen, showing amps and watts. So yeah, my screen draws more. Yeah, screen draws more than the camera. Well, it's not recording right now either, so I'm sure when you record and you open up the, whatever it's called, I'm sure it draws some more juice. Well, here it is, all assembled and mounted. Super easy, just ran a zip tie through here so I can take it off easily if I need to. But we're all wired up and loomed in. It really actually looks, I think it came out awesome. So everything's powered up all the time. It's running, obviously, the screen, and I have the light off because if I turn it on, it's probably gonna mess with this camera. But yeah, it's all running off of one battery pack with things up and running. I'm only drawing not much. I mean, what's that in wattage? 6.3. So if I max out my video light, at full tilt, we are 10 watts. So that's gonna last a very long time with 6 amp battery behind it. I'll kill that guy. I would love to hear what you guys decide to build with this and what you want to power with it. I'm sure there's a million ideas that I'm not thinking of. This one just stuck out to me because I was so frustrated by dealing with the batteries. That's usually how you go and invent something cool, right? Just so annoyed with the battery charging situation every time I wanted to shoot a video that it forced me to start thinking about what I had for options. So that's where this one came from. So I hope that helps. If you have questions, concerns, comments, and or criticisms, make sure you throw them down in the comment section below me. Otherwise, everybody, thanks as always for watching and have a great day.